the Studio Cuts podcast with Taylor with WRRV.
This is the Studio Cuts podcast. Hey, it's Taylor from 92.7, 96.9 WRRV. And the Studio Cuts podcast is where we interview artists that were featured on Sunday Studio Cuts, our new music show on WRRV. Today, we're hanging out with Alex, who is the frontman of Culture Wars. Their single, Leave Me Alone, has over 500,000 streams and is working its way up the charts. First off, good morning. It's early over in Australia, right?
Yeah, it's early morning, but that's how my sleep schedule is now. I'm a normal person, which is unfortunate.
What's it like over there?
It's like 2019, but with less interesting news. That's how I describe it.
Are there any COVID restrictions?
No, unless there's an outbreak from somebody leaving quarantine hotel, then they kind of will lock things down for a second and test everybody and make sure everything's fine. But nothing I've directly experienced in the last 3 months. I mean, there are certain kind of lockdown stuff, but they haven't been over here. And usually it's pretty quick and they just... everybody just complies and gets tested and stays at home for like 3-4 days. And then they go, okay, no one else it didn't get to anybody else. And then they just call it a day.
Is it weird to see the rest of the world has these crazy restrictions and where you are doesn't?
Well, I've done both. I've been in LA during COVID and I've been here. So it's totally different. But I think you see what can happen when a community or a country, work together to a common goal of having normal life. So, that's it's pretty straightforward with everybody here, which is interesting.
How did you end up in Australia after growing up in Texas?
Well, I'm only here temporarily, but I'm just desperately trying to get on the set as an extra for the new Thor movie right now. So
I think that's a pretty good reason to go over there.
Yeah, they turned me down for his body double, but that's fine.
You're the frontman of Culture Wars. How did you meet your bandmates?
It was a long process of just kind of, it started, 6 years ago, where it was just like people getting in a room together to jam and then just inviting different people and cycling stuff in and out. That's how I met David, just friend of a friend randomly. And that's kind of how it continued it was over a long period of time. And then, we were in a band together, before this, and we, just kind of decided that it was time to do something different. And with the first song written outside of that band was Lies. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, let's just do this now. So it was kind of a natural progression, cause him and I really grew up together doing this. So it's just kind of where the next step was.
What made you decide on the name Culture Wars for the band?
It was actually totally random, which is a way more boring story than it should be. But we were going through names for what felt like 6 months. I think it was 4 or 3 or something. And we just had a list of random words from random things. And I think, I had a list of like 40 words or something. And one of them was culture from Culture Club. And then one of them was war from War on Drugs. And there was a lot of other just random words, but that's I think where it came from. And then I just put them together randomly. And even though we've been not arguing, but talking about it for a while, as soon as I said that, Dave just went, yep. I was like, oh, okay.
So there's no super deep backstory.
Yeah, it's totally random. It worked in the end, but that was just kind of, I guess, luck.
The sound you have is incredibly unique in the best way possible. What are some of your influences?
I have my own, but the reason I think that it works is that Dave and Dylan and I all have such drastically different influences, and we kind of meet in the middle on that. So, I have my answer, but I think that the interesting part is how David, for example, would never say a single thing on my list. Maybe one, but it's so drastically different. So I enjoy like New Order was like a big deal. I enjoy Division, obviously, but for me, and U2, I think has been around for us for a while, and I mean, there's just so many different things. Kings of Leon. I mean, I like the 1975. I mean, Oasis? What am I listening to now? I don't know. I mean, we're always just listening to different things and trying out different things. And I think especially now, as we start to put out the new music, people are realizing, or will realize, how varied everything that we're doing is, because it's just the music that we want to hear. But yeah.
What was the inspiration for the single "Leave Me Alone"?
Musically, you'll have to ask Dylan. But vocally, I mean, to be completely honest, I was when we were trying to come up with something, and I don't remember doing it. But it came out of my mouth, and the chorus, and our buddy Charles was like, "That sounds cool." And I'm like, what sounds cool? And then they played it back for me. I'm like, okay, that does sound cool. Which is kind of, unfortunately, the story about a lot of things. It's like, how did it happen? I'm like, I don't know. You'll have to ask. We do a drunk recall or something. We'll see.
We'll do a drunk Studio Cuts podcast interview.
Yeah, it's not 9 a.m. and I'm in for it.
"Leave Me Alone" is coming up the alt charts fast. How does it feel to have this success right now?
I don't know. Like you said, it's fast. So I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. Every time somebody tells me something, hey, like this week, hey, we're at 33 this week. Oh, okay, great. All right, I'm going to go back to bed now. It's 4 a.m. But, no, it's nice. And obviously, we've been, Dave and I especially have been doing this for a long time. And to have any kind of recognition or success is always, not life affirming, but something to that point, so it's great. I think it's going to be nice to eventually physically be able to see it, and play shows and do all that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, I enjoy doing all this from home. So
Can you tell us about the music video for "Leave Me Alone"? Was it filmed pre-pandemic? What was it like?
Yeah, that specifically was during the pandemic.
Wow.
All of the visualizer stuff that we shot on Super 8, which is the other video stuff, was all done like last week of February in Las Vegas. So, it was kind of, yeah, that was a whole different thing. But with the video for this, yeah, it was done during the pandemic. We were obviously trying to figure out a way to do a video. We knew that with everything going on, with the song and wanting to put it out, and the Bill and Ted stuff happening all at the same time, we're like, well, we really need a video, but how? And how do we do this? And so we went through a lot of conversations with our director, Robo Shobo, and it was originally supposed to be, we were talking, he had this idea of how to shoot a video essentially where, we were all the people in the video. And we all really liked that idea for a lot of reasons, especially COVID reasons. But we then kind of talked about putting it into a casino. And so we then went through this, what felt like 3 months, I can't remember how long it actually took, but process of trying to get a casino to let us film there during COVID. Now, most of them are closed. Mm-hmm. What we didn't realize is they didn't want to open the doors while it was closed, because they technically didn't have a license to be open in it right now. So their whole thing was like, we don't want to get in trouble for being open when we're not supposed to be, even if it's a private shoot. And California had, even for California casinos, they'd revoked film licenses for all these places. So we went through this whole thing of trying to find, well, maybe if we shot it in overnights at a casino that was 10% capacity, and we had, all these crazy things. And we went through, I mean, I could go on for like an hour about it, but we went through all these crazy things, and eventually we landed on, all right, let's just build it, because we had like our 10th casino back out after confirming. And we're like, all right, let's just build it. So we did it in the lobby of a theater in LA. And we had a crew of about 20 people. Everybody had been tested within that 24-hour or 48-hour, I think, span. Masks, distanced, everything. It was people in masks, and then the makeup people in what I consider to be full hazmat. But it was interesting. And you do the crews where like the lighting crew comes in, sets up lighting, then they leave. Then the the camera crew comes in and sets up, and then that, it's just kind of, you do it in shifts so that not everybody needs to be in the same space at the same time, even though everyone's been tested.
Should we expect an album or an EP this year?
Right now we're what I call slow dripping the EP. So there's 2 more songs left from that that are not yet released. We just put out a new one called Tech, which is like the EP title track, so to speak. And then, just because of the pandemic and having nothing to do, we kind of essentially wrote the entirety of whatever's coming next. So we're now finalizing writing before we do any production or recording for the next thing after this. But right now it's this EP, which we're honestly just playing it by ear and taking it a step at a time and releasing songs when the time's right, because everything's digital. So, you can kind of do anything on a dime if you need to.
You've done some touring before. Are there any plans for shows this year?
No, not unless it's here in Sydney. I mean, there's festivals going on next month. So,
oh, wow.
So, maybe if it's here, but of course the guys would have to, sit quarantine and what have you, which I did, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, probably not in the United States, if anything. I highly doubt it.
I saw you're into Westworld on HBO. What did you think of the most recent season?
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely like that show. Yeah, I mean, I liked it in general. I'm trying to remember how it ended, to be completely honest, because I watched it so long ago. But I definitely like that show. I need to watch the original. But yeah, and I obviously love the music and everything that's going on in there, and that's why I started pivoting and watching Watchmen, because Trent Reznor and Atticus did all the music for that one, so I was interested to see all that. And I've got that's my plan tonight, is I'm going to watch the finale of Watchmen, which I haven't gotten to yet.
All right, my last question for you: if someone were to come to your city, whether it's in Australia or in Texas, what is the one thing they need to do?
Well, I guess I'll pivot it to Austin, because that's really where we're all from. One thing that I love barbecue over there. There's a lot of different barbecue places that are completely different. I wouldn't go stand in line for 4 hours for Franklin's, because there's no amount of food or quality of food that's worth standing outside at 7 a.m. But you can't really go wrong. Yeah, I would go with some barbecue stuff. I like the kind of I really like Lambert's for some reason, and which is not everybody's answer, but I think it's also because it used to be down the street from where I lived. Austin's really great for food. Music, I don't know, but but food, sure. There's a lot of great food. Uchi. Oh, okay. Here's a good one. I feel like a tour guide now, but it's good. Loro is the dude from Franklin and the dude from Uchi making their own restaurant, and they have a brisket that's made specific. That one's pretty interesting. It's not typical, but it's good.
Well, different but good sounds great to me. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for hanging out with me and the Studio Cuts podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Make sure to check out Culture Wars and their single Leave Me Alone as we wait for their album to drop. And don't forget to catch Sunday Studio Cuts, a new music show featuring all of the up-and-coming alternative music, hosted by me every Sunday at 10 p.m. on 92.7, 96.9 WRRV. Join us next week as we interview another up-and-coming alternative artist on the Studio Cuts podcast.